Okay, in this movie I'm going to be talking about the Thor films. I don't read the comics, so if any of this stuff is revealed in print, that's going to go over my head. And if you haven't seen the first 2 Thor movies, then this stuff may go over your head, or you may just be upset that I spoiled the movie for you, so be warned. Okay, so in the second Thor film, Dark World, Dark Elves invade Asgard, kill Thor's mom, and generally tear things up, looking for the Ether, his magic weapon. Thor wants to go after him, but King Odin wants to wait it out and let them come back. Then Thor decides to go over Dad's head for the greater good of the realm. Sound familiar? We'll get to that later. So when he meets up with the gatekeeper Heimdall, he's told that the bifrost, the magic interstate, has been closed down by order of the king, and that there's no way he can possibly override those orders.
I cannot overrule my king's wishes. Not even for you.
Okay, so let's go back to the first film, about an hour and 16 minutes in, when Thor has already been banished, Loki's the king, and has forbid anybody to use the bifrost, especially to go hang out with Thor on Earth. Thor's buddies decide to go over Loki's head, and they get the same speech from Heimdall as in the second movie about how he can't disobey his king.
I am bound by honor to our king. I cannot open the bridge to you.
But then he totally pulls the "I can't do it, but you could if my back was turned" loophole. So you may be thinking, well, Loki was an evil guy who wasn't supposed to be the king, so he was just, he was doing what was right. Fair enough. But let's go back even earlier in that first film. A different group of bad guys invade Asgard. King Hannibal Lecter says not to go looking for trouble, and Thor wants to go over his head for the good of the realm. Again, Heimdall is waiting, knowing that they're not supposed to leave.
Do you think that you can deceive me?
But this time he doesn't even use a sassy loophole. He just says, well, I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm really curious how those guys got in without me knowing, so have a good trip. Yet by the end of it all, he still has his job. After disobeying 2 kings about the whole don't use the Bifrost rule, he's still back in the second movie as the gatekeeper. He's even got nifty spinning room upgrades. Yet, in this second film, Thor says he needs to go after Bad Elf McPonytail, and Heimdall says no can do. Okay, so maybe give it the benefit of the doubt and say that they didn't show it in the first movie, but, after he disobeyed Odin, Heimdall got a severe tongue lashing and he was threatened with some terrible fate if it ever happens again. So obviously in the second movie, he's making Thor jump through all these hoops because he can't afford to get in trouble again. But he doesn't just lay low and avoid getting in trouble. Instead of just sitting back and letting things happen, he calls Odin and his soldiers into his lookout and straight up says, hey, I'm committing treason. Not only throwing himself under the bus when he had done nothing wrong up to this point, but also tipping them off to the fact that something was up. If he had said nothing, the gang would have probably got a better head start, and he would have had his hands clean of the entire ordeal. But more importantly, if he was already planning on getting himself in trouble, he could have helped. Instead of calling the king and saying, come arrest me, he could have brought in Thor, his girlfriend, and the whole gang, and sent them to the Dark World, and then waited to get in trouble, like he did in the first movie. Instead, he let Thor go through with the insane plan of jailbreaking his mass-murdering adopted brother and letting his friends all commit treason, possibly killing fellow Asgardian soldiers. You have to admit, there's at least one casualty in all these battles. I know if they did it this way, it would have made for a much shorter film with less Loki, but they probably could have found a better excuse to get Loki out and playing nice with Thor. So now at the end, we see that Loki was posing as Odin for the whole, hey, I'm proud of you, son, moment. So first of all, where's Odin? But more importantly, what happened to Sif, Heimdall, Fandral, and Volstagg? I assume that as soon as Thor made it out, they all got captured and have been locked in an Asgardian gulag for the rest of the film. I assume the reason that the real Odin wasn't in his throne at the end of that movie was because he was down in the dungeon making sure that the traitors were getting their daily beatings. So, that's my 2 cents on it. I like these movies, but that bothered me.